put in the same situation, I'd do it again. If, you know, if we could turn the clock back, I would do it again, because having the baby, I mean, he had Samantha for 2.5 years and he absolutely idolised her. And there's just no way I could have ever taken that away from him. We knew what we were doing. We took a very, very calculated risk. And we knew what could happen. But as I said before, there's just no way I wanted to be left on my own without a child. They absolutely idolised each other. They were like a mutual admiration society for each other. When she was about 4 or 5 months old, I decided to go back to work because Bob had started to become ill. I just thought he was tired, but he was actually starting to go on to having full-blown AIDS. So it made more sense for me to work full-time, so he stayed at home and he brought her up. And right from day one, he changed her nappies, he used to feed her. They used to play together, he took her to the park. They were inseparable and they had a very, very close relationship. And I'm glad, you know, they really lived for each other, and I'm pleased he had that. Because, you know, if we hadn't have had any children, it would have just been me and him, and he wouldn't have known the pleasures of having a child. And it really used to make his day. When he actually died, the night he died, she'd only just come home with my mum and dad, and I realised what was happening. So my mum took her next door to stay with the little girl that lives next door. So she wasn't actually in the house when he died, but the next morning I went to get her because she should have been at play school. She ran upstairs, and the first thing she said was, "Where's my dad?" And it was awful because I had people down here, and it went really very silent down here as people were waiting for me to speak. And I thought, well, there's no point in lying to her. I'll tell her. I said, "I'm afraid Daddy's gone to heaven now. He's gone to be an angel." And she said, "Can we go to heaven as well?" And I said, "No, not yet. But that's where Daddy's gone."
What's the Daddy doing?
Putting the jumper on. What's that?
As a best.
What's that?
What's it?
Rubbish.
Rubbish.
Yeah.
I don't know what's in the bin.
Show me where the yellow duck is.
I think if children are treated with a degree of responsibility and, you know, not exactly treated like adults, but certainly treated as if they've got a brain between their ears, then children will respond well. They perhaps cope with it better than adults do. Children to children don't die, you know, and adults to children don't die until perhaps a grandparent goes. They're usually the first one. It's less usual for a child to think about a younger member of the family dying, and certainly their own parents.
They're forced into the idea that AIDS is terminal. They would wish it was different. There are times when they wish it would hurry up because Dad's had a shout at them or something, but it's very much that they know things that they don't want to know, and it hurts them.
Alan and his family receive great support from the local community. Friends and neighbours drop in all the time to help ease the burden of AIDS in the family. But Alan's illness is a pressure which they can't escape.
We don't have enough time together some weeks to talk out problems that we know is going to rear up. If I've had a bad spell and we know the girls are going to react to it, there are times when talking about it first would help ease the problem. They both deal with it in a very different way. Naomi's good as gold, and then suddenly she'll have a bad spell where she's the most horrible kid in the world. But it's her way of getting the hurt out of her, is to have a go at someone else, often Chris or Grandma or whatever. It's a tension released. Sarah very much is a quieter person, and she'll often be sitting watching the telly, and next thing you realise she's sobbing through no apparent reason, but something on the telly has tripped a little switch in her brain, and she's upset. You know, she doesn't want to lose her dad, and it becomes very difficult at that point to deal with it, you know. You've just got to let them have time and be there for them. It's very difficult at times to understand fully how children understand. They have a very basic sense of AIDS.
John developed a touch of whooping cough, which he got over, but that started his immune system being depleted. And probably about 6 months after Mandy died, he developed pneumonia for the first time. HIV is such a hard virus to catch that ordinary hygiene precautions are quite adequate to prevent the spread of HIV. So as long as you're not sort of sharing toothbrushes and things like that, and cover up cuts, there's no problem. John and Andrew used to be bathed together, and if John got a nosebleed through the night, usually with Andrew sort of playing, a bit boisterous, Andrew would just go to the toilet, get a bit of tissue and sort of wipe his nose, and Andrew's still negative, It's, the virus has actually got to be injected into your body before you can actually catch it. The biggest thing anybody really noticed about John was that he was always happy. Big daft grin on his face all the time, virtually, as if he sort of knew the world was a joke and he was laughing at it, When he did become ill, he regressed a bit, and you get like the shrinking of the muscles and things like that, so he lost a lot of weight and he stopped walking, and he stopped talking to a large extent as well. He sort of reduced the alphabet down to the letter A. That was his language, everything was A, but with different inflections. So, Andrew knew exactly what he was saying, but nobody else did, When Mandy died, I wasn't really that bothered whether I'd died or not, but just kept on coping because I had 2 kids to look after. When John died, I'd had a much longer period of time to actually come to terms with it. Mandy was very quick, actually, from finding out that she had HIV to the time she died was only a couple of weeks, so it was a shock. With John, I'd been preparing myself from dying for sort of 2 years. When he did actually die, what had happened was the charge nurse had gone in and to see if he was okay, and he asked John if he wanted a drink, and John had nodded, and so he got him a small drink of juice, and John had drank it, held the cup out, said "more," which was one of the only words he actually used, and then he just fell back in the cot, and that was it. He was gone. They tried to revive him, but they couldn't. Andrew's taken it, all things considered, he's taken everything very well. He's had 1 or 2 minor things, sort of psychological things. Like when Mandy died, he started wetting the bed again, which he hadn't done since he was about 18 months old or so. He used to have sort of odd moods and things like that, but he's more or less accepted it. I've explained as much as he needs to know about HIV. He knows his mum died of AIDS, and he knows his brother died of AIDS. And he also knows I have the virus and that I might die. But he also knows that I won't necessarily die. And he knows that he'll be well looked after if that did happen. So he more or less just sort of carries on and sort of accepts it. My brother would look after him, my sisters would look after him, my sisters-in-law would look after him, my mother-in-law would look after him, father-in-law. There's so many people that would look after him. So there's no sort of real problem. If I did actually die, he would be well taken care of. my sister's kids of our own, and she has a little boy who's round about Andrew's, he's slightly younger, and they get on really well, and he can sort of go around and play with Leigh and carry on like normal kids, you know, run riot. So it gives me a break as well if he's out of the house.